Somebody can come out with a book today that's going to change a ton of people's lives. And it's kind of like my trophies. Like every book that I have read, I can see it on my shelf. For that reason, I don't lend out my books. Later on, I'm going to give some examples of my favorite books in each genre. I really hope it changes your life the same way it has changed mine. Welcome to Inside Out. This is going to be another solo episode, and I'm going to be talking all about books. So this is going to be a podcast for book lovers, people that want to read more, people that are curious about books and they haven't been able to get into it. I am hoping to give you some information that is going to help you read more because I think that that is going to benefit your life. The first thing I would recommend thinking a little bit about is how do you want to consume that information. There's physical books, which is my personal favorite way to read. There's audiobooks, and then there's also the Kindle, which is, a little screen and all of your books are there instead of having to carry around a physical book and ordering a physical book every time. I personally love physical books, love going into bookstores and just being inspired and seeing what there is and especially when I travel, I love going into a bookstore. I think those are the options: audiobook, a Kindle, and a physical book. And a side note, another reason I love going into bookstores, which is sometimes you think like a market is so saturated and you don't want to get into it, or you're like, what's the point of me becoming a content creator or me starting a podcast because there's so many podcasts, or what's the point of me becoming a makeup artist because there's so many makeup artists, or whatever it is that you're interested in and you're like, why should I do that? If you go into a bookstore and you see how many books there are, like it is just mind-blowing how many books there are, and they still every day, or I don't know how often, there's new bestsellers, and there's so much space, and somebody can come out with a book today that's going to change a ton of people's lives. So that's another reason why I love going into bookstores. Another recommendation is buy a book when you're ready to read it. I have bought books in the past because I want to read them, but I'm not ready to because I'm reading other books. Then by the time I'm done with my book and I'm ready to read that book, maybe I'm like over it, I'm not in the mood for it anymore. Just like the excitement of it has worn off, and then it just sits there. So I prefer to have to buy the book when I'm ready to read it. That being said, I think it's also a great idea to have a list of books that you want to read, or in your Amazon cart, always be adding books so that it can motivate you to finish the books that you're reading and to be excited to get to them. I just personally do not buy them until I am ready to read them. Another huge thing for me that has been a huge motivator in reading is I buy my physical books, and I have created like a little library of all of my reads. And it's kind of like my trophies. Like every book that I have read, I can see it on my shelf. Gives me it validates like physically the work that I've done. It shows me, look, you have read all of these books, and I love that. For that reason, I don't lend out my books. I like to keep them, and they are like my treasures. If you don't buy physical books, that's fine, but I would suggest to find a way to track how many books you've read, which books you've read, so you can look back on it, and it just gives you a sense of pride. So there's an app called Goodreads that you can put the books that you've read, the books that you want to read, and that's a good way to track it, or you can write it down somewhere. I just highly recommend tracking it because it's going to be a great motivator for you, and it's going to give you more sense of accomplishment. And you can also just look back and be like, oh, wow, I read this and this, and like just all the different knowledge that you've gained. Another thing that I think is important to think about is how much do you want to read? I think for anybody starting, pretty much anybody, I know there's some people that are very, very busy, but one book per month should be very doable for anyone. And if you don't have time at all, like even one audiobook when you're in the car is doable. If you are already ready to do 2 books, I think 2 books is great. And if it were me, I would try to do one where I'm learning something and one where one for entertainment in some way. I like to read when I'm learning something, I almost can consider it like I'm studying, and I can do it during work hours. So I can do that during the day, and then like my entertainment could be at night. If my husband's out of town or something, like I'll get everybody ready, put the kids down, put my PJs on, get into bed, and I'll start reading my novel, for example. Also, I love reading my novels when I'm traveling. Like that is kind of my entertainment. I read a novel whenever I travel. And then for me right now, I'm averaging 3 books a month. I think that's a healthy, solid amount for me and my current lifestyle. I know some people read 50, 100 or more books in a year. And to me, at one point, that sounded like, oh my God, I want to get to that. But that's kind of gone away. And I care more about the quality of what I'm reading and how I'm retaining it and how I'm applying it, rather than just trying to read as many books as I can. Right now, 3 books a month is a great average for me. It's a bit of a challenge, but I'm able to do it. Maybe sometimes I'll do 4, maybe sometimes 5, maybe sometimes I'll do less, but I'm good with 3 a month. Another thing to think about, what is your purpose in reading more? Why do you want to read? What are you trying to learn, or is it for entertainment? And both of those are great reasons to read. As far as entertainment, I think, and everybody always says, like, the book is better than the movie. You're using your head and your creativity so much when you're reading a novel versus watching a show or a movie. And then if you want to learn something, I'm going to speak about all the genres and everything that there are, because maybe some people don't even know about all the different genres. You have fiction and you have nonfiction. So with fiction are not real stories, they're make-believe. And within that category, you can have romance, you can have a thriller or horror, you could have fantasy, sci-fi, like comedy. There's just a whole bunch of fiction categories. And then my personal favorite fiction genre would be historical fiction. And the reason for that is because it's an entertaining story, but you're still learning something about a time period in history that maybe you didn't know a lot about. So yeah, historical fiction is great in my opinion. Also, like, romance is fun, or a good thriller. I love to pair what I'm reading with what's going on either in my life or in the year. So in February around Valentine's, I'll read like a romance novel. In October around Halloween, I'll love to read a thriller. And then you have nonfiction, which could be self-help books, spiritual books, books to like transform yourself, parenting, psychology, business, finance. There's a huge realm of books in the nonfiction category, and my personal favorite is memoirs. And the reason I love memoirs is because they're true stories. They're usually very inspiring and something amazing has happened, but it's a real life and it's somebody's real life. So you are, again, learning something, but it's entertaining. I love to switch genres. So I don't want to read a bunch of business books or a bunch of self-help books or a bunch of novels. I like to read a novel one day, and then once I'm done with that, I can do a business book, and then once I'm done with that, maybe a self-help, and then maybe a memoir. That keeps it interesting to me, and I'm always, just learning something different. I can also do multiple books of different genres at the same time because I'm able to like just kind of categorize it in my head or compartmentalize what I'm learning because they're just so different. Later on, I'm going to give some examples of my favorite books in each genre. One of the places we shop at every single week is Josh's Premium Meats. This is where my family and I buy all of the meat for our home. We try to keep our diet high protein, and this makes it so easy. This is where we get the ground beef I use for our lasagna or taco nights, or the churrasco that we grill at home. And when we want to feel a little extra fancy, we grab a tomahawk or A5 Wagyu. Once we started cooking with their meat, it felt like there was no way to mess it up. It came out good every single time. And it's not just Kirk and I that love it, it's the kids' favorite too. The next thing I recommend is figuring out when are good times for you to read. So first of all, I recommend always having a book with you. Like, make sure your book is with you in your car, in your bag, whatever it is, always have a book with you, because there's going to be times where you have 5, 10, 20 minutes to do nothing and you're going to end up scrolling on your phone, and you could have taken your book out and read 5, 10 pages and those add up. Some of the times that I read the most is when I'm eating lunch by myself, which I do often, whether it's at my, at my table at home, or if I go to any of those, like those fast casual restaurants that I eat at often, I always have a book with me, and I love eating and reading at the same time. Another time to read is when I'm doing any appointment, whether you're waiting for your appointment time, like you're in the waiting room, or if you're getting like a mani-pedi. I read about 50, 60 pages every time I do a mani-pedi. Then in the school pickup line is a great time to just go wait in line. Sometimes I'm waiting there for 20 minutes and I'm reading, and it makes the time pass so much more enjoyably. I'm sometimes even like, oh, why did it start? Instead of like being like in a bad mood because you're waiting. And then flights are another time that I can get 100 pages in easily. Or if you're driving, like if you're riding in the car and you're a passenger, whether it's a road trip or if you're just going anywhere, sometimes I used to like feel bad bringing my book out, but the truth is like most of the time I'm not really having a full conversation with my husband. Like he's driving and listening to music, so I could just bring my book out and read a few pages. But yeah, as long as you're always having that book with you and making a note to like a mental note that when you have a little bit of time, take it out, read some pages, and those will add up. And the more you read, the more you will read. Another super, super important tip to remove distractions. And the biggest distraction that we all have when we bring out a book is our phone. So put your phone out of reach. If you are on the sofa, like, and you want to grab your book, put the phone somewhere. Obviously, if you have kids or your husband or whatever, you can let them know, hey, I don't have my phone for the next hour or whatever. You can do that to make you feel a little bit better and like not have to keep checking it. But take your phone and put it in the kitchen or put it in your bedroom or, you know, put it to charge and get it out of sight. Because if not, you're going to read half a page and you're going to grab your phone. And that is going to kill your momentum completely. So another tip that I have is first doing your research when you are going to buy a new book. Check reviews or ask for recommendations. When asking for recommendations, I also think it's very important to have a little conversation about what it is that you want to read about, what you're in the mood for, what you want to learn, like what's your goal? Because just because I loved a book, it doesn't mean it's something that is going to impact you or something that you're going to enjoy. Have a conversation about what you want to read. And also if you're getting a recommendation online from somebody that reads a lot of books and they're like, I loved this book, like find out what the book is about and if that's something that is good for you to read in that moment. And then also sometimes we start a book and like it's kind of like we're not retaining it. It's not like we're just not feeling it. There's a fine line, in my opinion, between pushing through and just keep reading and eventually like it'll all just connect and like it'll all make sense and you just got to push through, versus if it's really a bad book and you're really, really not enjoying it and then you being able to say like, I'm done with this book and then I'm ready for the new one. Because if you just stay with that book that you don't like and it can kind of like weigh you down and then like you just stop reading because you don't want to read that one anymore, but you don't want to start another one. So yes, it's okay to quit a bad book, but also sometimes you're just maybe in a little bit of a rut and you're just have a lot going on in your head. Try pushing through first. And if you really don't like it, let it go and find a new one. But if you did your research before and you checked the reviews and you got a recommendation and you really made sure it's something that is aligned with you, that will probably not happen as often. Then another recommendation I would say is join a book club or create your own book club, or start following accounts or looking at people that are reading books, because the more you see it, the more inspired you're going to be and motivated you're going to be to pick up a book and start reading. I have my book club, which is open. Anybody is more than welcome to join. All you have to do is like send me a DM so that I can send you the link. But if not, you can just create your own. Like even if it's 3 people, 3 friends, 4 friends of yours, you can just send a message and see if anybody wants to start a book club with you, and that's great. Another thing that I highly recommend is finding little tools that elevate your reading experience. So if you have a physical book, get cute bookmarks that you like. I haven't really personally been doing this, but I want to start highlighting. So I'm going to look for like a good highlighter that's not going to like seep through the pages. I want a good highlighter, but a reading light is great. I have my reading light that I really enjoy. Even if the room is kind of lit up, having like extra light on the pages helps. If you have a Kindle and you want like a cute case, or if you want a little bag to carry your book in, like just doing things that elevate your experience and make you a little more excited to have them really makes a difference. I'm going to share a few of my favorite books in each genre. They're my personal recommendations, but I think they could be interesting for some. So the first one I'm going to share is 3 nonfiction books. So I know this was like super controversial movie, but I really liked this book. It Ends With Us. I think Colleen Hoover is a great author because it's just a very easy read. I don't know, most of her books that I've read, I've really enjoyed and I've just gotten through them really, really quickly. So for somebody that's starting and wants to like feel accomplished and get through the book, I highly recommend Colleen Hoover. There's multiple like that I could recommend, but I really enjoyed It Ends With Us. Then a fantasy. I'm not like a huge fantasy girl, but the ones I have read a couple, and this one I really loved. It was also like spicy, and even though it was a pretty long book, I got through it pretty quickly because it was very entertaining. And then this is actually another Colleen Hoover book, and it's a thriller, and it's called Verity. And the movie is coming out soon with Anne Hathaway, and it's probably going to be amazing. So I highly recommend Verity. Then we're going to move on to some nonfiction. This is actually a spiritual book. So I have been on a spiritual journey for a few years now, and I've read a lot of spiritual books that have really changed my life. And this was the first one that I read. So Many Lives, Many Masters. It's a classic. People love it. I loved it. And it kind of just opened my eyes up and led me into, figuring out some of my beliefs and some of my ideas. Then The Big Leap. I spoke about this in my last solo, and this is it's pretty short but impactful, and it talks a lot about, our limiting beliefs, our own ceiling that we put for ourselves. So I think it's a pretty good book for anybody to read. Gillian Turecki, It Begins With You. This is about love and really about self-love. And that's kind of like, it's about the relationship that we have with ourselves and how that impacts the relationship we have with others. It's the most important relationship that we're ever going to have in our life is the one with ourselves. And this is a great book. It's very just practical and good advice that anybody can use, whether you're in a relationship or not, because we're all in a relationship with ourselves. Don't Believe Everything You Think. This is another great one. It's short. It's very effective in my opinion. Controlling our thoughts is so important, and there's 1,000 books on this topic, and the more you read, probably the better it will be, the better you'll get at controlling that. But this is a good one to start. And then I saved the last two for my two favorite genres. So historical fiction. This was my favorite historical fiction novel I've read so far, Lady Tan's Circle of Women. It had so many themes that I personally just absolutely loved. That had so much depth to it, and it was still very entertaining. And then Into the Magic Shop is probably my favorite book of all time. Of course, depending on what you're looking for, but this just had a lot of elements of things that are important to me. So Into the Magic Shop. So we are at the end of the episode, and I just wanted to talk about how reading books has completely transformed my life, and I know it's going to just continue to transform my life because I am not going to stop reading. I want to keep learning and growing and challenging myself, and every book that I read does that for me. My confidence has grown exponentially since I started reading, and the reason is because I feel more competent, and I think confidence comes from competence. I am able to sit down at a table where I'm meeting new people or just getting together with friends, and there's so many more things I can discuss or talk about because of all the knowledge I've gained. And it's brought me close to people, even in the DMs or, my book clubs or whatever. There's so much connection. There's so many people that love to read, and it has changed their lives too. So it's another form of connecting with people. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope it inspires you to read more, and gave you some tips or tricks to start, your reading journey, or to continue it, or to keep growing it. I really think it's not about feeling guilty for not reading. If you haven't read, or if it's, a challenge for you, that's okay. I think just putting yourself in the, around it, talking about it, thinking about it, trying to do it is going to get you closer and closer to making that first step, reading that first book. And I really hope it changes your life the same way it has changed mine. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If something in today's episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who needs it too. I'll see you next time. Until then, keep choosing to live from the inside.